Greetings to you all. My name is Benjamin Ferencz. I am now in my 96th year, and I am the last surviving Nuremberg war crimes prosecutor. I was pleased to receive an invitation from an organization called Jewish Culture in Sweden that requested me to sum up something about what the Nuremberg trials and the subsequent Nuremberg trials were about, and my own personal experiences connected with those efforts. I had been an honor student at the Harvard Law School. I had a scholarship on my exam in criminal law. At that time, there were not many Jews at the Harvard Law School, and it was rather unusual, particularly since I came from a very poor family. We were immigrants to the United States. I came as an infant. My father had no skills which were saleable in America. He became a janitor in a tenement house, and that was my earliest recollections began that way, in a place called Hell's Kitchen, which was a high-density crime area. I was fortunate to be able to go to good schools, and at Harvard I was also focusing on crime prevention, which was my chosen goal. When the war broke out, I managed to get into the Army. I did not qualify for the Air Force because I was very short, and they said my legs wouldn't reach the pedals. But I got in as a private, and since I had a background in law and war crimes, I was assigned to the artillery, where I knew absolutely nothing. And in that capacity, I was a member of General Patton's army, and we chased the Germans back to Berlin and fought all the battles in which I was involved. My most interesting feature of my wartime assignment was to be assigned to become a war crimes investigator. The Allied powers, including Roosevelt at that time, before Truman took over, had determined that the Germans would be held to account for all of their crimes. Everyone knows about the International Military Tribunal. There, Justice Robert Jackson, the most distinguished jurist in the United States, was chief of prosecutor for the United States, and the British and the French and the Russians also sent their chief prosecutors, and they accused about 22 Nazi leaders led by Hermann Goering of a whole host of crimes. The trials didn't last very long, several months, and they were very well reported in the press everywhere. And Hermann Goering committed suicide after he was sentenced to death. I would pick up my personal involvement after that date. When the International Military Tribunal was coming to an end, the United States, then led by President Truman, decided that we should have more trials in order to give a more comprehensive picture of how it could be possible that a country like Germany, highly educated, civilized, and powerful, could allow and permit and encourage and commit the horrible crimes which I had personally witnessed as I entered the concentration camps, with the bodies in the crematoria and the dead bodies lying all around, etc. I needn't go into the horrible details because they are too horrible to recall and really too difficult for a rational human mind to comprehend. And when the war was over, I was recruited to go back to Germany together with Telford Taylor, who was assigned by President Truman to be the chief of counsel for a dozen subsequent trials, as they were called, following the International Military Tribunal. My first assignment from General Taylor, with whom I was later a law partner, was to go to Berlin and gather evidence which would be used against the suspects in all the different fields: the German doctors who performed medical experiments, the lawyers who perverted the law, the industrialists who built concentration camps to work people to death, the military who cooperated with the SS themselves. So this was the panorama that we were going to open up to the public. And he said, Ben, you know about investigating. You've done this during the war. Go and get the evidence so that we can present a credible case against the suspects. And I did that. And one of my researchers in Berlin came upon a set of archives called in German Ereignismeldungen aus der USSR, which means situation reports from the Eastern Front. And these were reports of special squads called Einsatzgruppen, special groups, reporting on how they were carrying out their assignment. And their assignment was to kill, without pity or remorse, every single Jewish man, woman, or child they could lay their hands on. They do the same to the gypsies. Why? Why did they kill the little children and the babies? Because they had Jewish blood. And if there was any Jewish blood in the family line, even if it was a woman who married a Jew, she should be killed, and he should be killed, even if he was a hero of World War I. This was decided at the Wannsee Conference, a big meeting of SS and Nazi leaders took place in Berlin on a lake called the Wannsee before they planned. They planned to kill all the Jews in Europe, and they had them listed by country. I don't remember what the figures were for Sweden, but Sweden had given refuge to a large number of Jewish refugees during the Nazi period as well. And names like Dag Hammarskjöld and others were well known. So this trial sought to establish a principle of law that all human beings are entitled to live in peace and dignity regardless of their race or creed. All of the defendants were convicted. The lead defendant, Dr. Otto Ohlendorf, I use as an example, fairly typical. Educated, Dr. Ohlendorf, general in the SS, father of 5 children, an intelligent man who was fairly honest. He said he killed all those people because they supported the Jews, supported the Bolsheviks. Therefore, you have to kill them and kill their children, because when they grow up, if they saw that we'd killed their parents, they would become enemies of Germany, and they would have to take care of that too, because they were interested in long-range security for their country. And why did you kill the gypsies? Well, nobody trusts the gypsies. They would play both sides of the street, so you have to kill them and kill their children too. On that reasoning, his unit killed 90,000 Jews, including the little job of Babi Yar. The Einsatzgruppen in 1941 killed 33,000, and they reported that in their top secret German reports. The next important step was, after taking care of punishing a few of the perpetrators as a sampling only, do something for the victims. And I stayed on in Germany and set up the restitution programs to provide return, first of all, of property which had been stolen or was heirless, to provide individual compensation for the surviving Nazi victims, and to the State of Israel, which gave refuge to the victims, and which were expenses which Germany would have had to bear and was in opposition to at that time. So these were new principles of equity and law, which I was putting into practice. It became a rather large organization, because we then had to lobby the German parliament. We had to set up legal aid offices around the world. We had one in Stockholm as well, the United Restitution Organization, to help the individuals with their claims. This was a second phase about which very little is known, because the Germans, it's nothing to brag about to say that we paid billions of dollars, as they did, in compensation, small sums to individual survivors, because they only emphasized the magnitude of the crimes. And of course, the new generation says, well, we didn't do it, why should we pay? And that's understandable. And Germany, fortunately, has a completely new way of thinking about these problems. The Germans offered to give me their highest civilian award, the Verdienstkreuz Erste Klasse. I had some hesitation about accepting that, because I thought, what will somebody say? How dare you take a medal from the people who murdered my parents, and so on. But I thought about it, and I talked to some of the Nazi survivor groups, and I said, look, it would be unfair. Germany's reaching out. They're trying to make a gesture. They did it with the restitution program, compensation programs. They want to tell me that even if I was the prosecutor, they appreciated what I was doing, and that's how they could do it, and I accepted the award. The French also gave me a membership in the Legion of Honor, which is very interesting, but I didn't earn it. But the most valuable award I have was a medal given from the best law school in the world, Harvard Law School. And it's valuable to me because the previous recipient was Nelson Mandela, who spent 20 years in solitary confinement before they accepted his idea that a black man can be as good as a white man. So I've had all of these interesting experiences. I've seen the world move away from the genocide, and I knew Referee Lemkin, who coined the term. I used that term for the first time in the Einsatzgruppen trial. We have moved away. There has been an awakening of the human conscience, of the gravity of the injustices that exist in the world today, with heads of state being themselves the biggest criminal and giving themselves immunity from prosecution and not allowing investigators to come in to prove the crimes. There was another phase which is often overlooked, which I think is important. When the Nuremberg trials were over, we had established principles of law that aggression is a supreme international crime. No one has been convicted of aggression since that time because the big nations have quibbled about it and pretended that they couldn't define it. For 70 years, they couldn't define a word. Baloney. They don't want to define it, and that's why they can't define it. They never came forward with their own proposals. And I consider myself a strong American patriot because I am grateful for the opportunity it gave to me as a poor immigrant boy. But I'm a patriot in the sense of Tom Paine, who was one of the leaders of the American Revolution, who said, it's not my country, right or wrong. I will support my country when it's right, but when I know it's wrong, I will do what I can to make it go right. And that's been my feeling about some of the positions taken in the United States. But we have to bear in mind, do not condemn a whole nation for decisions reached by a few people. People have to be responsible for their own conduct. Crime is committed by individuals. That was also an important principle of Nuremberg. Everybody's forgotten about the Einsatzgruppen and Babi Yar. I grieve for every individual who was killed in these senseless wars, which are still being carried on in all parts of the world. I've been trying to get aggression accepted as an international crime. The big powers have blocked it and pretending that they couldn't define it. And I've said, let's focus instead on crimes against humanity as an international crime. That has been generally recognized to be an international crime in many jurisdictions, and it has more resonance with the public. But let's not give immunity to mass murderers as I knew them. I know that war makes murderers out of otherwise decent people. And I would like to eliminate war as an instrumentality for settling disputes, particularly in the cyberspace age. And we are beginning with the International Criminal Court to approach a rational legal approach to dealing with the problems of persecution and murder, racial murder, hate crimes, and so on, which still exists in various parts of the world. Sweden has been largely spared much of that compared to other countries. And I want to convey my appreciation to the Swedish government and to all the Swedish public who are responsible for having a humane approach to differences among different people. Sweden is a sheltered corner, and the Swedish have been a model of how a nation can be at peace without spending all of its assets on armaments. We must bear in mind that we must find a new way of dealing with differences of that kind by peaceful means, and by peaceful means only, to learn tolerance, learn compassion, learn the meaning of understanding the other fellow's point of view. Sweden is a good example of being able to do that. So it's a dangerous world we live in. I won't be here much longer. I don't think I'm immortal. And I can only pass on the advice to try to inculcate in others a change of heart and mind. Let them recognize that even if there are differences which are deeply felt through reasons of religion or nationality or economics or anything, you settle those differences not by killing the adversary or somebody connected vaguely to them, but by compromising and understanding it and having it judicially settled without the use of force. So that's my conclusion. After a very interesting life, I have no complaints. I will go out the way I came in. I want to go out a pauper, and I'm giving everything away to organizations which are fighting for a more peaceful world. Sweden, I'm sure, has their own assets, and that you've been doing a very valuable job as being a sound voice for peace for everyone. And I convey my appreciation to the government as well. Thank you and good luck.